What up, Wizards? It's Deb. That's Mtg, and whew, today was a goofy one, wasn't it? In case you're not caught up on all the drama, today was Wizards' Fireside Chat. That's right, they actually called it a Fireside Chat. And if you thought that language was supposed to be evocative of like a nice personal one-on-one conversation between Hasbro and the player base where we acknowledge some hard truths and maybe talk about what we need to do better, oh, then none of that stuff. It's none of that stuff at all. In fact, this was an investor call from top to bottom, like a lot of us feared that it absolutely would be from the moment they announced this thing in the first place. Just a bunch of lame, pre-fed, rehearsed beach ball questions lobbed at them granny style so they could knock it out of the park, pretend they're at the World Series. It was basically as sad as a lot of us expected that it would be. But there's so much to this that I'm actually going to do something kind of different with this one. I could just go through and give you the broad strokes, but there's so much said in this, 35-minute call. The call lasted about as long as the Magic 30th Anniversary Edition sale, zinger. But anyway, there's so much in this, and I'm going to go through almost the entirety of the call, minus all the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. That's going to cut about half of it out. So hopefully that'll bring us to a nice solid 30 minutes here, but this video is probably going to be like an hour long. But in that case, if you wanted the abridged version of what all of this is, Wizards effectively said, and I quote, let me just make sure I've got this right. Hold on. Nuh-uh! Now let's start the sort of less abridged version of this, and I'd like to go ahead and start it, as a matter of fact, because there's kind of a lot of it. Now, if you try to find this, or at least when I tried to find this, right before I came on camera on my desktop so that I could just copy pasta a lot of this stuff into the editing software, I had to pay. I had to sign up and pay to see the transcript of this call on Market Screener. Luckily, though, earlier when I found this transcript on Market Screener on my phone, it did not make me sign up or pay for anything. So I still got it open on my phone. Let's just kind of read it, why don't we? Oh, also, just a little quick footnote before we start here. If I screw up the pronunciation of anybody's name, I'm not doing it on purpose. I just don't know how their names are pronounced. So it's in print, and sometimes you can screw that up. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started here. Ahem. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. I'm Arpine Kacharian, leisure and gaming analyst with UBS. Now, if you look up, by the way, what UBS Analysts actually is, UBS Sustainability Analytics from UBS Asset Servicing supports you in assessing the environmental, social, and governance aspects of your portfolio. Use our online analysis to get transparency on sustainability ratings, business activity checks, carbon emissions, blah, 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 blah. So they are basically a financial analyst firm that is very likely in the employ of Wizards of the Coast. And in just a moment, she's going to give disclosures to everybody that basically say that much. So just to let you know, the person asking the questions. Okay, so anyway, we are really excited to have with us for a fireside chat Chris Cox, CEO of Hasbro, Cynthia Williams, President of Wizards of the Coast and Digital Gaming, and Debbie Hancock, Head of Investor Relations at Hasbro. The focus of this call is going to be Hasbro's franchise brand, Magic the Gathering, and Hasbro's long-term strategy for its gaming business. So, 3 heavy hitters coming on. We got Chris Cox himself, the big Chris Cox himself, the CEO of Hasbro. We got Miss Williams, the president of Wizards of the Coast. That's a big one. And of course, again, in case you had any doubts about what this was, in case you thought they were going to be talking to the player base here, no, we've got the head of investor relations at Hasbro. Quote again, but before I go any further, as an investment analyst, I'm required to provide certain disclosures relating to the nature of my own relationship and that of UBS with any company on which I express to you on this call today. So again, she has a working relationship with Hasbro, is all that is. This is only a 30-40 minute call, so we might not have time to open the line for Q&A. Funny. But feel free to send me questions via email. We don't address them on the call. With all that out of the way, Chris, Cynthia, Debbie, welcome. Thank you so much for your time. They all say hi and thank you for having us and all that stuff. And then after they all get done saying hi, Debbie Hancock, the head of investor relations, she has a disclosure to make. She says that today we're going to be making a lot of forward-looking statements. I love that corporate speak. We're going to be making forward-looking statements, but we undertake no obligation to update any forward-looking statements made today to reflect events or circumstances occurring after the date of this webcast. I thought that was a good one. That was a nice little loophole. We never have to bring any of this up ever again. If you ask us about it again, we'll be like, what are you talking about? We've already talked about that, haven't we? So that's just interesting. They make forward-looking statements today, but don't ask them about them 6 months from now. Right? And didn't you say that? Like, no, we said that we were under no obligation to address these forward-looking statements. I thought that was neat. But anyway, it goes back to the analyst who says, fantastic. They say that a lot. Note that they say fantastic all the time. I just want to point that out, but fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie, Chris. Why don't we start with you? You've been CEO of Hasbro since February. Obviously unprecedented times, middle of a global pandemic, supply chain challenges, disruptions. But as we look forward, could you please update on Hasbro's kind of branded entertainment strategy? And how is that different from what that strategy was before? So Chris Cox says, yes, well, hey, first off, thanks so much for having us. It's great to be on and blah, 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 blah. So in terms of our corporate strategy, the new strategy we rolled out in October called Brand Blueprint 2.0. Did you know about this? It's a continuation and an evolution of the successful blueprint strategy we've been deploying for a little over a decade, which is all around the concept of engaging and surrounding the consumer with a host of great play and storytelling experiences that build our brands, build our relationship with the consumer, and help us build a profitable and healthy business, yada, yada, yada. Where I think the big points on the pivot in the strategy are in a couple of areas. First off, we're shifting from a bit more of a breadth strategy with our old strategy to be more focused on debt strategy. Now, the transcript says debt strategy, but they use the word breadth strategy. It's hard for me to say. Breadth strategy. I'll write it on the thing here. So I don't know if this means debt strategy or more likely depth strategy. We call it fewer, bigger, better brands. So again, instead of a wide breadth of products, a depth of products, fewer brands, but more depth within those brands, I think is what they're trying to say here. Hasbro has over 1,500 IP in our portfolio, and we're really going to focus in on about 8 to 10 brands and really grow them. And those brands are going to be in places that we have a lot of strength in the company, gaming being a big one, where we believe we could be a leader in the category and where we can drive above category growth and where we can drive really nice profit profiles over the mid and long term. So that again is just like pure investor sauce. They want it. They just open their mouths and Wizards turns a little spigot on the soft serve ice cream machine and like, oh yes, give it to me. We want that. We want to drive really nice profit profiles over the mid and long term, baby. I love it. Sorry. The second aspect of the strategy is a focus on the consumer and really doubling down on our consumer insights. on understanding our consumers and also how we communicate with our consumers, increasing our A&P, that's advertising and promotional budgets, driving new and innovative experiences with the consumer, surrounding them with a host of engagement opportunities, whether it's big budget movies like we have with the upcoming D&D Honor Among Thieves movies, or great video games like we have with Magic the Gathering Arena. And then last but not least, the strategy is a focus on this word is hilarious to me. The strategy is a focus on discipline, really driving incremental operational excellence as a company so that we compare the fantastic creativity and design we have with stronger cost management. Those are super ominous words. Stronger cost management. And we believe that we're going to be able to accrue significant value of that. In October, we talked about a goal to generate $250 million to $300 million of cost savings annually over the next 3 years. So your secret layer foils aren't going to not curl anytime soon, right? And your cards are going to be made out of increasingly crappier paper and cardstock. Get ready for that. We believe we're on track to do that and potentially even exceed that. And I think that's just good business. Whether or not it's healthy economic times or more challenging economic times, it'll position Hasbro to be able to invest in our brands and deliver more cash to the shareholders. So that's what it's all about, really. I think when you put it all together, I'm quoting again now, what Blueprint 2.0 really is, it's a redoubling and refocusing on our traditional mission of play. Hasbro is going to celebrate our 100th anniversary next year. We have this portfolio of amazing brands. We built those brands through play starting as early as the age of 2 or 3 and extending into adulthood. And Blueprint 2.0 with our focus squarely on our biggest brands with our best consumer insight and driving a little bit more discipline to pair with our great innovation and creativity. So that is about the biggest admission that you'll get in this entire thing. I want to really point out, I want to underline this piece of business right here. This little piece of business. Focus squarely on our biggest brands with our best consumer insight and driving a little bit more discipline, maybe just slightly more discipline. That's all we're going to say. Okay. Driving a little bit more discipline slightly to pair with our great innovation and creativity. So they sandwiched it. I don't know if you noticed, but that's the old corporate sandwich there, right? We got some big brands. We got a lot of big hardcore consumer insights here. We're leaning on those. And also great innovation and creativity. But right in the middle there, maybe moving forward a little bit more discipline. But I honestly don't think we should actually read into it that much, considering what comes on a little bit later. So it moves back to the analyst here, who of course says, fantastic. That was great for opening, Chris. Thank you. Cynthia, as Chris mentioned, Hasbro has a strong gaming portfolio in parallel, really in the industry. You make it any more obvious here on the payroll, making up a significant portion of profits for the overall company. Could you talk about your largest brand, Magic the Gathering? And could you start by giving us a brief overview of where that business is today? And then I have a quick follow-up for you, Cynthia. So Cynthia says, sure. Well, thank you, Arpine, for having us. First of all, it's my pleasure to talk about Magic. Now, I love what she does here. I love this. Now, the question, could you start by giving us a brief overview of where that business is today? So Cynthia starts by saying, it is really an amazing game with an incredible fan base. Magic was created in 1993, and it's the world's first trading card game, been played by over 50 million players to date in over 200 countries. The gameplay is highly strategic and customizable to any individual's playstyle. Players take turns doing battle against each other by casting spells, summoning creatures, and using artifacts that are depicted on individual cards the player draws from their personalized deck. Hey, thanks for the Wikipedia entry on Magic the Gathering. I appreciate that. I mean, maybe the investors on the call have no idea what Magic the Gathering is, which again really drives the nail home as to what exactly this is in the first place. But I just love, hey, could you talk about what the business is like today? Yeah, Magic the Gathering was invented in 1993. So what are you doing? Anyway, I apologize. So it goes back to Arpine, who of course says, get ready for it, that's fantastic. Cynthia, when we think about Hasbro, we frequently think about kids, but Magic is not typically played by kids. What can you tell us and people on the call about the Magic player today and how that's been evolving? So Cynthia says, sure, we know a lot about our players. I don't know why that line just fills me with cold dread. It's like from a horror movie, right? It's sure, we know a lot about our players. Whoa. Cynthia, multiple times a year, we survey tens of thousands of Magic fans on a variety of topics related to the game. The Magic active tabletop player on average is 30 years old. Huh. It's actual real information. Players range from about 13 years old to over 45. I think it's important to note that a third of our players have less than 3 years of experience with the game, and another third have been playing for more than 10 years. So you end up with this wide range of engagement. That's interesting, right? We also look at how and why they play. We've seen growth in casual players, who we estimate represent about 80% of the player base, with the competitive player base representing the remaining. And this single insight has really led to a major rethinking of our offering and how to serve our growing and more diverse player base. All right. Players and fans participate across multiple segments. They overlap. For example, in the casual segment, the format that's led to the most popular and played, or the format that is the most popular and played by more than 70% of our players, is a social format. Indiscernible, the transcript says. She almost certainly says Commander here. It's played by 4 players at a time. It has a really unique and cooperative rule set, and we do specific product releases to maximize this fan engagement. It's Commander. Over half of our players identify as social players, meaning they enjoy the gaming for the social experience, and about 50% are collectors of some kind, whether it be buying the cards for Indiscernible, strictly for aesthetic purposes, or as an outlet for self-expression through their game playing. Now, these are directly from these surveys that they just talked about. The tens of thousands of people take these surveys every year. I've taken these surveys for the last 4 years, right? And this language here, an outlet as for self-expression through their gaming, and strictly for aesthetic purposes, that's directly from some of the questions from their survey, right? Like, why do you like Magic? Why do you like this or that card? Why do you like this format and stuff? Why do you like the kind of cards that you like, right? It's self-expression. That's what I like, is self-expression. So, I mean, it does come directly from their player base, but they also supplied the answers to their player base that they could then use during their calls. Our player base feels this way. Yeah, you supplied the answer. Anyway, and finally, I'd say we have over 10 million registered digital players with Magic Arena. I love that language too. Usually corporate language isn't that loose. I'd say we have over 10 million registered digital players with Magic Arena. In the past few years, our fastest growing category of Magic players are hybrid players, meaning they play in both digital and on tabletop. This group tends to have the highest... Jeez, this series of sentences. Get ready. I don't want to just blow through this because I want to make sure that you are properly prepared for this series of sentences. Hybrid players, this group tends to have the highest satisfaction rates within the game and the highest level of spending. In fact, they spend 40% more than the average revenue of Magic players across all expressions. Yeah, because you got them hooked on you got them doing both things. Of course they spend more money. Yeah, it's just, of course. And also just this group tends to have the highest satisfaction rates. What? Yeah, man. People that play on Arena and in tabletop, they're just the happiest people I know. I'm not saying that there aren't happy Magic players that do both or anything, but you know what I'm saying, right? I mean, it's everyone is totally satisfied with Arena, right? Everyone. It's not a single person with a complaint about Arena. It's just satisfaction rate, the highest satisfaction rates. I want to zero in and do an hour-long video about the use of that particular phrase in this context. Okay, so they spend more money. They spend 40% more money because of course they do. Arena is a hell of a drug. You know what I mean? But it goes back to Arpine, who does not say fantastic. Instead, they say, that was just great. I don't think I've ever heard this much of... I don't understand this. I just got to be a mistranscripting thing here. I don't think I've ever heard this much of good color on kind of the player profile. I don't think I've ever heard this much of good color on kind of the player profile. Figure it out. So this is super helpful. My next question is for both Chris and you, Cynthia. Chris, you were leading Wizards until earlier this year. Could you talk to us about how you grew that business? And then Cynthia, one of the key questions I get on Magic is that after an incredible run... Listen to this. One of the key questions I get on Magic is after an incredible run of 4 to 5 years of above average growth and Arena rollout, that business is much bigger today. That's not a question. Really listen very closely to this. One of the key questions I get on Magic is that after an incredible run of 4 to 5 years of above average growth and Arena rollout, business is much bigger today. It's one of the biggest questions that she got. What are you doing? These questions were pre-written too, and no one caught that. It's like the episode of King of the Hill where Dale goes to the basket making factory because he loves baskets, and he's like, I have a question. I heard that pants baskets were the original word for pockets. And the guy leading the tour has to be like, that's not a question. I feel exactly that way here. Okay, so if you were to recap what's next for Magic and how you grow that business going forward, because every gaming company on investors' minds saw uptick during COVID and now seeing the reversal of that, why could Magic be different? And how do you intend to grow that business going forward? So that's the actual question. Chris Cox, sure. So I'll start off. Magic has been, I would argue one of the biggest success stories from here. They're talking to investors. The whole thing here is to assuage investors' fears that maybe they're screwing things up. By getting their stock double downgraded at this point and dipping 30% over the course of 48 hours. This whole thing is to assuage investor fears. So remember that when I read you what Mr. Cox says here. Sure, I'll start off. So Magic has been, I would argue one of the biggest success stories in the games category over the last probably decade. I was fortunate enough to start in the business in 2016 after the business had grown, I think, for 7 straight years. We had started to see a little bit of plateauing in that growth in 2014 and 2015. And so we started to kind of really want to understand, okay, why was that? And in 2016, when Magic was probably around 350-ish million, maybe 400 million at that time, we really had a monolithic view of the player. Get ready. We really had a monolithic view of the player. We thought there was one player, at least a competitive player. We knew that there were other player segments that existed, like casual players and collectors, but honestly, we're a little afraid that if we built products that deviated at all from our traditional approach of appealing to the competitive player, that we would hurt the business, because that's what the problem was, right? Is that they were just constantly filleting competitive players all the time. It's your fault, competitive players. They're laying sorely at your feet. Okay, so we thought it would hurt the business if we appealed to both casual and collectors as well as competitive players. They are saying that for the first 20 years of the business, they focused solely and entirely on the competitive player and to the detriment of casual and commander players, or casual and collectors, which is false. It's a fucking incorrect. It's an incorrect thing to say. It sounded like I cursed there, but I didn't. I was just stuttering. But it's not a true statement. Also, I love this. Listen one more time to this. We thought there was one player, a competitive player. We knew that there were other player segments that existed, like casual players and collectors. So which is it? You can't have that statement both ways. We thought there was one player, but also we knew that there were other players. Okay. What we found was actually the opposite. If we were able to segment our player profiles in just a really simple way, so call it the competitive player, the social player, and the collector, and build products that we spoke to each of them, that we could make each of those segments happier, we could engage them more, we could get more of their time and more of the share of their wallet and grow the business as a whole. I feel I'm going to have to take a shower after reading some of this. As a result, over that intervening 6.5 year period, we'd probably either tripled or come close to the triple overall Magic business. And we've been able to do it across a wide set of products, a wide set of segments that have made the business healthier than ever. It's healthier than ever, guys. Shut up. It's healthier than ever. We've been able to do it in a fairly balanced way because the only measure of whether your business is healthy or not is whether or not it's made more money than last year. That is literally the only, there's no such thing as consumer goodwill or bad will or any of those other things that they definitely taught you in business school. There's a million, again, I can make an hour-long video about this, but the measure of a business in this case is how reliable of an investment it is for people who are looking to buy stock in it. So this is just an assuagement of fears is all this is. He even made a point to say, there was a 7-year growth period, but then we did plateau a little bit. But then I came in and had the brilliant idea to segment the player base. And, so you can reliably invest in us. It's fine. Especially, we were already growing. We had reliable growth before them. But then I came on and boy, we have been doing gangbusters. Is just a quick translation of that. But anyway, we've been able to do it in a fairly balanced way where we've been able to balance new player growth with lapsed player reacquisition because there's probably close to 60 million people in the world who have ever played Magic. So actually people coming back to Magic is just as important to us as new players who have never played it before, as well as driving a little bit of revenue growth per user through that segmentation approach, which has been good for us and it's been good for our channel partners, whether the indiscernible or the e-commerce partners indiscernible is what the transcript says. Cynthia, maybe over to you, Chris says, because he is done talking for right now. He's said enough. Cynthia then says, I'd love to talk a little bit about our plans to continue to grow Magic, especially in 2023 and beyond. And I say we do have some good tailwinds that are aiding us, primarily that we are seeing this bold return to in-person play. Haven't we all noticed? Magic really thrives on that face-to-face interaction that wasn't able to happen during the pandemic. Our in-store play participation numbers are trending up, and they're already back to about 75% of where they were pre-pandemic. Really? Are you sure? We recently organized the largest ever in-person event in Magic history. We had over 10,000 players gather in person in Las Vegas to kick off the 30th anniversary celebration. It was an encouraging and fun fan event. We plan on having 4 more of those Magic events, it says indiscernible, next year. Our first one will be in Philly on February 17th through the 19th. I should have cut that. I don't want to promote this, but we've been releasing, I don't know why not. We've been releasing 6 tentpole sets. This is important. I should do that every time. I should be like, whoop, whoop, whenever there's something I think is not just garbage corporate speak. We've been releasing 6 tentpole sets for several years. We will do that again in 2023. With our new player acquisition strategy focused on the universes be online, is what it says here. What that actually is the universes beyond line. I'm sure that's what they meant. Our new player acquisition strategy is focused on the universes beyond line. This year, we have Lord of the Rings as a big tentpole release. We also have smaller sets like Doctor Who that'll attract the newer players. In future years, you'll see us do the same with Final Fantasy and Assassin's Creed, which will join the franchise. And of course, we'll be celebrating Magic's 30th anniversary with our fans. This is the most poetic and discernible in the entire transcript. There's a couple of poetic ones, don't get me wrong, but this This is my absolute favorite. And of course, we'll be celebrating Magic's 30th anniversary with our fans, the Magic Indiscernible I mentioned. Isn't that great? We'll be releasing new products, and we're especially excited to help our trade partners and our fans by offering exclusive promo cards from each year of Magic that'll be available exclusively through our WPN stores with every tentpole set release. Magic is bigger than it's ever been. Its own pace to become Magic's, it's on pace. I'm sure it's what that's supposed to say. There's a lot of misspellings and mistranscribings. It's on pace to become Magic's or Hasbro's first billion-dollar brand, and our surveys show that our net promoter score globally has increased to the highest point it's been at in the past 3 years. Yeah, what about your Bank of America score, though? You know what I'm saying? Note, by the way, that this is the first mention of billion-dollar brand. It is super obvious. They're chasing that hard. Like, they want it so bad, bro. They're going to bring it up a little bit later. Like, that is their sole focus. We will be a billion-dollar brand come hell or high water. Scorched earth, no player base left. We will be a billion-dollar brand, damn it. I really think there's an undercurrent of that here. But anyway, this is going to go really long. Our survey shows our net promoter score globally has increased to the highest point it's been in the past 3 years. It throws back to the analyst. That's very helpful. Cynthia, I think maybe this is a question for you regarding Arena, which has obviously been a huge success, obviously. I remember back in the day before MTG digitization, the big pushback or concern for investors was whether there's going to be any cannibalization of that business once you go digital. And now we know it was actually additive to the business. Now we know. But my question is there more to do in terms of monetizing the kind of digital aspects of the Magic franchise? Is there more to do in terms of monetizing digital Magic? Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, our hybrid players are the most engaged and they spend the most. So our efforts around Magic Digital, so get ready to get milked. Our efforts around Magic Digital will drive increased play and integration across both tabletop and digital platforms. Now Wizards Play Network stores are telling us they see new players coming into their store who are ready to join that community after they learn to play on Magic Arena. So Magic Arena has been a great success for us, but it's still indiscernible to grow as we continue to invest to meet the needs of that wide range of players. So in 2023, Arena will refactor our new player experience to improve onboarding for new players and help them quickly find the play experiences that appeal to them the most. This will reinforce our acquisition efforts and maximize the impact of our launch on Steam, which is the biggest gaming platform in the world outside of mobile, and it will be our largest platform expansion since the mobile launch last year. We'll continue to engage new players and longtime Magic players with our expanding product releases and our event offerings, including our first Digital Universes Beyond set featuring Lord of the Rings. We've seen really great engagement with our Premier Play launch this year, and in 2023, we'll see our first full year of Arena Championships and qualifier weekends, as well as our increasingly popular Arena Indiscernible. Again, some of these are really funny. The Indiscernibles. So it throws back to Arpine, the analyst. Great. And Chris, maybe this is a question for you. Inflation has been top of mind for investors, and ability to take on pricing has also been important. Ability to take on pricing. Remember when Hasbro said that we're all just a bunch of price-sensitive wimps? Remember that? Inflation has been top of mind for investors, and ability to take on pricing has also been important. We've also seen kind of more traditional choice factor take on pricing throughout the past. Throughout the pandemic, really. But as I think about kind of price elasticity of demand for Magic, in my mind at least, that is an overall less price elastic consumer versus a kind of more traditional toy consumer. First, do you think my assumption is correct? Second, do you believe pricing along with unit growth could drive Magic over the next couple of years? So Cox says, yes. I think the straight answer to your question is yes, it tends to be less price elastic. The customer. But obviously, there's logical limits to that. We're very aware across our business of the pressures that the general consumer is under and the general discretionary sector is under vis-a-vis inflation. Are you? You know, like it seems like they release all these tone-deaf statements a lot of the time, and this in and of itself is a pretty tone-deaf statement. But yet they say, we're very aware across our business of the pressures that the general consumer is under. Are you? Are you? We've taken some action. We've taken some pricing actions across our lineup at Hasbro. This year, we took a pricing action on about half the Magic line, and the first time we've done that in 10 years. We're very reluctant to do that. We've got a great brand. We've got a great product. The challenge that we've had is that there's just been a lot of cost build up inside the general paper market. Paper pulp is more expensive, significantly more expensive than it's been over the last couple of years. Now, I'm an objective person here, and I will say that this statement is 100% true. It's actually about 2,000% true. Paper has gone way through the roof over the last couple of years. So, makes plenty of sense. The general trading card market, whether it's kind of fantasy or gamified, the trading cards like Magic, or more sports-oriented cards have seen explosive growth. So there's a fair amount of printing press demand that drives up some cost pressures. And I think that's one of the big environmental market factors for why, again, paper has gone up so much, is because, that is 100% true. Flesh and Blood, Force of Will, many other card games, and of course, sports cards as well, have exploded over the last couple of years. These are all true statements, and that would lead to demand at the printing press, and that would lead to higher costs. So I get that. That makes sense. Now, all that said, when we look at how we think about growing Magic over time, Cynthia would be the expert at this, but I don't think it's about raising prices on Magic cards or raising prices on Magic packs. At the end of the day, it's about growing our player base, and it's about leaning into our segmentation strategy and adding products that our players want and have a lot of play and collector value. So, again, of course, it's part of their job to do that. Adding products that our players want and have a lot of play and collector value. Okay? There's nothing ostensibly wrong with that. It's the fact that they put out so many products that it's really difficult for people that do want to buy those products to keep up, is one of the major complaints that we've been lobbying at them for the last few years. I think Cynthia and the team would have been doing a very adept job of that. Certainly, we have some of the best experts in the company driving that for us. So it shoots back to Arpine. Great. That's actually a good segue to my question for Cynthia, which, if it isn't the price, are you releasing then more product this year? Could you sort of go through pillars of growth for Magic? And if you can briefly address D&D, but we'll get back to D&D in a bit. If you could just kind of go through those kind of pillars of growth as you see for Magic. And I'm sorry, some of this could be a repeat of what you said earlier. Cynthia, absolutely fine. Our growth is coming from both our customer and product segmentation strategy, which is backed by a lot of the data and insights into Magic's different mana bases. I think that says mana bases. It says man bases? I don't know. We have innovated. I don't know what it says man basis. We have innovated and experimented more in the last 4 years than we did in the prior 26 by making a bunch of different products and collector's editions and alternate arts and extended art full frame. And that's probably all what that means. And also putting Walking Dead on cards and Transformers and Godzilla. That's also, I'm sure, what that means. That's innovation. It wasn't that Wizards knew they could do that before, and they just never wanted to do any of that because it seemed kind of lame, and the players probably wouldn't like it, and it would just be kind of a cash grab, badoop that most people would not really be into. I don't think Wizards didn't have these ideas. I wouldn't call this innovation. I would just call this, we need to print some money. And as a result, we're serving more player segments than ever before. So there's going to be a shift in how many SKUs we release in a year. So that's why we release more products. So we're focusing on different parts of the player base. She keeps bringing up the segmentation strategy, which sounds insipid, doesn't it? It's in a way, it sounds insidious, but I get it. You're just targeting different parts of the player base, whether it be competitive, collector, casual players. Well, what percentage of the player base is intersects all three of those styles, right? Like, how many people do you have that effectively want to play competitively or follow competitive Magic, but they also play a good bit of Commander, and they also like to collect cards. A lot of Commander players collect cards because they want like blinged out versions of their Commander decks. I don't think they really understand, or they do understand. They don't really go in depth about like how much crossover there is in the Commander and collector communities and stuff. It's just, there's a lot of crossover. You're not really segmenting the community. It turns out that there's going to be like 25 to 40% even of the player base that's just going to want to buy every product that comes out. So, for example, we've been on a cadence of 6 tentpole releases for a year for over 3 years now, and there are major releases that have the most to offer every kind of Magic player. With each of the tentpole releases, we have expanded the number of booster product types to meet player preferences, including adding set boosters and collector boosters. That was for us. That was for us that they did that. And then we'll have smaller print run products sprinkled between those tentpole releases that are opt-in, depending on what type of player you are and what resonates with you. So we have a collectible product line called Secret Lair. We do some smaller sets like Unfinity that fall in that category. But if I were summarizing it, I'd say our growth has come from monetizing more player segments and not just from increasing the spend of the same core set of players. And our product release schedule really reflects that. But I will say that in the second half of 2022, we had a really compressed release schedule that was partially driven by by supply chain issues. We didn't intend that. We will not schedule tentpole releases this closely together going forward. That is the most definite statement in this entire thing. It's the most like promissory statement in this entire thing. But do remember that they said that they were going to be saying forward-looking things, but don't hold us to any of those forward-looking things. I'll just remind you that that was in the beginning of this, but this is the most definite statement in the whole thing. We will not schedule tentpole releases this closely together going forward. That sounds like a fairly promissory statement. The supply chain issue I referenced resulted in 2 micro sets, releasing on the same date in October. But in 2023, we will return to our preferred release cadence of approximately 2 months between tentpole sets, with individual micro sets sprinkled in between. You asked about D&D. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so Arpine goes back to her after they do the D&D talk. Fantastic. Again. And we'll have time, hopefully, if we have to come back to D&D briefly after we are sort of done with Magic. But Cynthia, I have a follow-up for you. There's been this claim that you're printing too many cards. Here we go. There's been this claim that you're printing too many cards. What is your 1-sentence answer to that? Or maybe 2-sentence, whatever you prefer. And then Cynthia says, I want to go a little more than 2 sentences. And Arpine says, yes. So Cynthia says, and that, by the way, maybe I'm just putting on a tinfoil hat here, but that, I mean, again, these are all pre-written things. And that sure seems written to make the Wizards executive look really, really good. Give me your 1 or 2 sentence answer to that. Well, if you'd allow me to, I'd like to say more than 2 sentences. Well, you are a saint. Yes. Okay. So anyway. Most of our Magic releases and our SKUs are print to demand. This means that we print and reprint products in a set to support players and customers who want to buy it, usually to play with it. And after an initial selling period prior to the launch of the set, all reorders after that set reflect real demand. And our average post-launch sales quantities in our tentpole premiere set remains unchanged in 2022 compared to 2021. In aggregate, there is no, here's the big quote. You ready for like the big, here's a flashing screen, whoop, whoop, here's the boop, boop. In aggregate, those words are doing some lifting. In aggregate, there is no evidence that Magic is overprinted, and the sentiment of Magic needs to cut print runs to support prices, that's a misunderstanding of our business and our customers. If our prices for a print-to-demand product rise significantly soon after launch, well, that simply means that we're not adequately meeting customer demand. We're making millions of players unhappy at their lack of ability to acquire the cards that they want to play. So that's why we then do another print run and another print run and another print run. So that's their whole answer to it. Basically, is that it's just a big misunderstanding if we need to print more things. Okay, if we've got to print some stuff, that's just a misunderstanding of how things work. People just want more cards, man. There's too much demand for the cards, so we got to print more cards. Okay. So it shoots back to Arpine here. No, that's really helpful. And I do want to get back briefly to distribution, Cynthia. With all these kinds of player segmentation, what is the primary way you're getting Magic product into players' hands, and how has that changed versus 5 years ago? Sure, our partnership with more than 6,000 WPN indiscernible stores. That is the core sales channel of our business. It accounts for up to 70% of our sales in year 22 to date. That's kind of an interesting figure. And we are really delighted that we can support those passionate local small business owners to provide unique opportunities for our fans to engage in organized play and to build community at the local level. Now, it's an interesting statement, too. 70% of how much money they make comes from local stores, LGSs, effectively, right? WPN stores. So that means that 30% of their business doesn't. So it comes from like Arena, it comes from Secret Lairs and other products that they just ship, direct to consumer and stuff. And that's actually a huge chunk. I mean, like 5 years ago, I would imagine nearly 100% of their sales came from LGSs. So now it's down. I mean, when you think about it in that context, it's down to 70%, which is still the majority, but Magic Online, Magic Arena especially, Secret Lairs, other direct-to-consumer products, now 30%, a full third of their business. That's... And this is really at the heart of our engagement strategy. It has great benefits for both parties, as indicated by our survey data. They love their surveys. Each year, we carry out a survey among the WP and hobby stores. We collected feedback this year from more than 2,200 of them. It's a large representative example, and it gives us a really good pulse on their health. We're pleased to see that this channel continues to grow and has strong performance. Listen to these numbers. More than 80% of our stores reported that they are growing or equal to last year, and over 60% report growth in their business. That is a little surprising, to the point that I wonder if it is somehow skewed. I really do. 80% of stores reported that they are growing or same as last year. Really? Okay. Now, that might be skewed, especially considering, it came out of a pandemic where local game stores, a lot of them, first of all, closed. So they probably weren't able to be surveyed for this. Right? Let's consider that. But also, if you look at the numbers for like 2020, 2021, I imagine that, they're up. Yeah, there was a big old thing. You remember we were all in our houses for like a year? Yeah, I remember that. I assume that, local game stores probably are doing a little bit better, but it's probably because of that. And not because you're so awesome at the business. We're such good business folk, people. We're so good at it. Just saying. But anyway. Over the last 5 years, we continue to evolve our omni-channel retail strategy. Omni-channel retail strategy. That involves continuing to expand our footprint at retail globally, e-commerce, as well as developing our direct-to-consumer collectible offerings. Ooh, boy. So the next question from Arpine is, fantastic. Fantastic. They actually say it twice. Cynthia, maybe this is still for you. Has there been some chatter there has been some chatter kind of secondary market for these cards, and that values are coming down because you're printing too much? Is that something you keep track of? Is that something that concerns you? First and foremost, Magic is a deep and strategic game that is played in hobby stores, on kitchen tables, and online, so our goal is to continue to grow that player base. And as I said previously, we print and reprint products to meet demand from our players. Magic will be our first $1 billion brand this year. Again with that, they're dead set, I'm telling you. We're growing that brand ahead of the industry and pushing the boundaries of where we can take the product. That is also a scary thing to say. More often than not, we get that right. Like our Universes Beyond, they totally get, they're getting that right. Which is already on its third reprint due to demand. And sometimes we step back and look into customer feedback like we did on our recent 30th anniversary edition, where we scaled back the expected supply to ensure a great collector experience. What? We scaled back expected supply of Magic 30th to ensure a great collector experience. Whew, okay, all right. How much were you going to sell? And how much, is that your excuse? Is that what happened with the sale? That you had like 12,000 units for sale, but you only sold like 10% of the supply that you were supposed to have? Is because actually you scaled back the expected supply? Is that what happened? Is that yours? Is that, there's so many things to be read into this one little statement. That contains multitudes of possibilities. That is an interesting statement. Now, that decision might not have been great for us in the short term financially, but it was definitely the right call for the long-term health of the brand, and it's good for our fans. They did it for us. Now, we do understand some players focus on the collectible trading aspects of our product, and we're always thrilled to see players. By the way, I just have to say this. It's good for the long-term health of our product. We scaled back the expected supply of the product for collectors and all that, and it's like, cool, players are trying to tell you that it's super stupid you were doing this in the first place because, who's going to pay $1,000 for 4 packs of cards? It's like, we'll strangle the supply. And that way collectors will certainly be able to flip these at some point in time if there's no supply of them whatsoever. If none of these exist whatsoever, that'll guarantee they flip them. That is financial security for the collectors right there, which is, again, how they think. It doesn't matter that there's going to be like Birds of Paradise from the set that cost $5,000 or whatever. It's probably hyperbole, but still. It's like players were like, who's going to pay $1,000 for proxies? And they're like, we'll make sure that these proxies are worth something. That's what we'll do. Anyway, now we do understand that some players focus on the collectible trading aspects of our product. We are always thrilled to see players enjoying and valuing our products for years after the initial release. But we don't participate in secondary market activity for Magic products, nor do we derive any revenue from trading or selling. They will pin tuple down on that. They've said it about 1 million times in their life as a company. What we do hear from some of our WPN stores that trade and sell cards after initial sale is that, like any market or any other collectible product, some products and individual cards do become more collectible than others, and values can change over time due to a multitude of external factors, many entirely unrelated to the number of cards reprinted. Now, we print, is what they say there. The transcript says, the number of cards remit. Many entirely unrelated to the number of cards we print has got to be what that means. Now we have no indication there has been any broad negative changes to interest in trading or post-purchasing of Magic products. It could be easy for someone who is unfamiliar with our pre-release sales strategy to draw a negative conclusion about changes in resale values shortly after the release. Now, the truth is that Magic products are regularly put on sale early exclusively through our WPN stores as part of a pre-release program that is designed to ever in-store play at those stores. I don't know what ever is supposed to be in that, but designed to make in-store play at those stores happen. It is common and expected for the secondary market values and for those products to shift dramatically and immediately following pre-release as more products become available in the market. Those value shifts are simply supply catching up with demand. I feel like this is a bit, bait and switch isn't the word, but they are talking about a problem that I don't think anyone is having necessarily. The fact that, not only sealed product, yes, sealed product too, but also singles and stuff will go on sale for a much higher price during pre-release, during pre-sale, during pre-order. The prices will be much higher than when the thing is actually released into the wild and we get like real physical product that saturates the market, and all the prices of not only singles but again sealed product will start to come down and all that. Until the sealed products prices start to rise again when the set goes out of print, right? That's how that works. And I think that obviously that's what they're referencing here, but I don't think that's I don't think that there's ever been an investor that's been like, hey, wait a minute. The price of this card went down $3 after the set released. Hey, wait a minute. I don't think that that's anyone's problem. I think that most people understand that like if you just don't buy cards. Don't buy cards on pre-sale. Don't pre-order cards. Don't do it because, the set's going to come out and then all the cards are going to go down like 50% after the set comes out because, the things are actually going to be in the market, physically existing. That's how it works. Of course that's how it works. I just don't think that that's anyone's problem. Anyway, it goes back to Arpine. I'm really running long here. Yes, I do think there's a fair amount of misunderstanding about all this. So thank you for that. And then they end up talking about D&D for like 10 minutes, and then we go back to kind of finish the call up. So I'm glad this is just about done. Chris Cox says, I think the only thing I'd add to the answer is if you looked at like a super simplified view of the strategy, Magic is the super deep single quadrant brand. Does a fantastic job engaging a very loyal and passionate audience. Listen to how he talks about us here. Magic is a super deep single quadrant brand and does a fantastic job of engaging a very loyal and passionate audience. I think our strategy at Wizards that Cynthia and the team are really leaning into is growing that engagement and growing that player base over the next several years so that our new player growth and our reacquired player growth are really kind of carrying the growth of the brand. So we are loyal and we are passionate and we carry the growth of the brand, and they don't listen to a word we say. So I just want to throw that out there. And you can see that in the initiatives that we're investing in, like in expanding distribution of Arena. Steam is the biggest PC distribution platform in the world. That should be kind of a nice leg up for Arena, investors? Nice leg up for Arena. We're going to be on Steam soon, just letting you know. Might want to buy some shares. We also continue to look at other platforms like console as another opportunity for that. So maybe you'll be able to play Arena on PS5 for some reason. And then I can't understate how important Universes Beyond is. Oh, and how much early success we've seen in crossovers like we did last year with D&D, which at the time was our best-selling summer set ever. And then what we did most recently with Warhammer 40k, which, as Cynthia mentioned, is on its third demand-triggered reprint. Like, we can't keep up with the demand there. And that's just a great way to kind of engage that Warhammer fan base in a very similarly deep and low-rich game and get them activated with us. And we see a lot of the upside to that, particularly with big mega brands like Lord of the Rings that we think will be important. And trust me, here comes ominous statement. And trust me, we have a lot more plans for that and some exciting news I think we'll be able to share with our fans soon. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, they already said Final Fantasy and Assassin's Creed. God. What else are you doing? What are you doing? So Magic's a deep single quadrant strategy. D&D, when I go to cocktail parties and I say, people ask me what I want, what I do. What I used to say is, hey, I was president of Wizards of the Coast. And they'd say, what's that? And I'd say, well, we make Magic the Gathering and we make Dungeons and Dragons. And I'd have maybe a 3 in 10 hit rate on people understanding what Magic was. But if I did, they would have an incredibly deep conversation in the cocktail party. Would effectively be over for all the other participants. So let's talk about cocktail parties because we're totally in touch. That, I believe, is more or less the entire thing. Somebody asked a question about the D&D movie that's coming out, and that's it. And then Arpine says, fantastic one more time. And then they all say goodbye. So that's, my God, we got through that together, you guys. I'm sorry I had to interject so much, but I had to interject a lot. I wasn't not going to. I mean, how can you say some of those things and not like have something to, you know, interject about it, your own, to editorialize on, because like, like we call them out of touch. They're like, no, cocktail parties. What are you doing? What are you doing? And there are a lot. Okay, count the number of times I say, what are you doing in this video? It's probably like 6 or 7. It's just all talking to people who have no idea what Magic is and trying to tell them that like, it's totally fine. Don't break the glass. It's cool. Don't sell if you haven't sold already. It's fine. It's fine. Guys, hey, it's fine. Pleading, you know what I mean? And we'll continue to grow our business. We're going to be $1 billion brand next year, baby. And we're doing Universes Beyond. They reminded the investors that they're doing Lord of the Rings like 5 times because the investors don't know Magic. They don't know how to play Magic. They don't know what Magic the Gathering is. They do know what Lord of the Rings is because everyone does. And they know that everyone knows that. So, hey, let's just remind you a bunch of times that, hey, we got some cards coming out next year, dog. It's going to be Lord of the Rings. So you might want to just keep your money in. Just keep your money parked and it'll grow. That's all I'm saying, is get your money up, dog. If you keep your money with us, you're going places, baby. That's all this is. That's all this is. And like, no, we're doing a perfectly good job. No, we're just printing to demand. That's all this is. Our players demand that they have these products in their hand, and we're not printing enough. We're disappointing millions of players when we don't print enough products. And hey, baby, we're not even going to talk about how many actual, like, jeez, dude. Like they said, we're going to keep releasing 6 tentpole sets a year, plus like micro releases like Unfinity and Jumpstart and stuff like that. And they're just going, it's the same thing that Rasmussen said a couple of weeks ago, just in more corporate language and in more words in general. Like, nope, we're not going to do anything about our print schedule. We're going to keep it the same way we've been keeping it. We're going to release basically a product every month. I mean, a product every 2 months with micro products in between feels more or less like a product every month. Now, they did say that they released products really closely together this time around, right? They said the 2 micro products got released on the same day in October, which is just wild. So they did not necessarily commit, because if you remember again from the beginning of the video, they didn't commit to anything. They said, we'll make forward-looking statements, but don't hold us to them, bro. Don't even bring it up later. We'll be like, what? But they did straight up say that we're not going to release things this closely together in the future. So one of the more definite statements that we got. But we actually got a bunch of definite statements. We don't overprint cards. All that, you know, we're making money hand over fist to Magic 30. That was a neat one too. We actually scaled back the print run for Magic 30th edition to ensure a good collector experience. Like, there's a lot of juicy stuff in here if you can decipher all of the corporate speak, right? There's some putting it on to competitive players, like, oh, it was just mostly for competitive players for like 20 years, and then we decided to maybe give collectors and casual players what they wanted, and that's just a segmentation of the player base. Hey, Jack, you don't want it, don't buy it. Hey, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's for the collectors. Oh, you're a collector? Well, maybe it's for the players. Oh, you're also a player? We didn't think there were collectors who also played. That's weird. Is that a thing? Yes! It's a thing! What is your problem? What is so, like, ridiculously out of touch? And, like, I'm never getting a preview card ever again. Anyway, man, I gotta end this video eventually. I've got, like, probably a lot more to say about it. that knew that just reading the thing was going to take an hour. And I can talk for another hour about like what this really was. But I should probably just turn it over to you because I think they've made it like pretty baldly obvious what this was. They will learn nothing. They will continue printing products, releasing sets and printing products at the rate that they've been doing that. Over the last couple of years here, they will continue to sort of smell their own farts and fillet themselves and all that stuff. It's just it's going to continue happening. They're going to be $1 billion brand. They're dead set on it, and they're just going to pump the whales and milk the player base, especially the hybrid player base, right? I mean, you are loyal and you are passionate and you are connected. You play both tabletop and digital Magic, and you are loyal and you are passionate and you are propping up the entire brand. And also, screw you. It's the takeaway from this for me, bud. So I just, man, once a public company gets plugged into a parent company like this, and once they go public and blah, blah, you know, you have to appease the shareholders. It's how capitalism works. But good Lord, does it all appear spineless when you actually like read the words on paper. It's all just so disgusting, you know? So that's, I should probably stop here because the video is an hour long. So if you like podcasts, maybe you listen to this while you're cooking or driving or something, you know, listen to one half of it while you drive to work, the other half while you drive back. I don't know what you do with your time, but I'm sorry for taking up so much of it with this video, but good Lord, if this one wasn't just like, it's just, oh God, it's just so, I've been playing Magic for so I started in 1995, yeah, so like 20, so my God, it's a really long time. I've been playing Magic for 27 years, and this is probably like just the most pathetic, the most pathetic day. Like, I thought that it didn't get any worse than, like, actually, like, going through with the release of Magic 30. And then, like, the probably failure that was. But, like, nah, this is bad. Like, this feels like raise the alarm, no pun intended, because that's a Magic card. But just, like, emergency, all hands on deck kind of thing that Wizards did. Because, like, Hasbro has never done something like this before. And it just really seemed like, you know, we know that there are problems, that there are perceived issues right now that we need to address, especially after just the butt show, the butthole show that Magic 30th was. And they didn't really talk about like what happened during that product release. We still don't really know. Maybe we'll know more during the quarterly financial report, but I'm amazed that they even decided to do this before the quarterly report in the first place. Like, that's insane. Like just the fact that they decided to do this before they had to kind of tells you a lot in and of itself. But I keep saying that I'm going to be done, and I'm never done. I've got a lot to say. And maybe I'll do another video talking about all this, but I've got to be done for now, because you're only going to watch up to a certain point, I assume. That's pretty much all I got for now. So just like do YouTube stuff, like, share, subscribe, Patreon, Twitch, blah, blah. And let me know how you felt. That's really the most important thing. And I, finally, will catch you cats later. I am Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.